Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tree Actions, the Human Forestry Podcast. And with me, as always, is my trusty counterpart, Tony Trestle. How are you doing today, Tony?
Doing well today. Thank you.
Right on, right on. And joining us from the right coast, all the way from Halifax, Nova Scotia, Mr. Kevin Osmond. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We were talking before the show about how it's nice to get some Easterners or Atlantic people on the show, and we're happy to do it. And I agree, it's good to have a spread. It's funny, our last guest was in Whitehorse in the Yukon, and now we're in Halifax, so we put some miles between us here.
Yeah, you know what? It's a small country though, right? Hop on a plane and you're there in 5 or 6 hours. So it looks big, but everything's really well connected.
It's easy to get around if you choose to. That's for sure. Well, I'm looking forward, as always, to every interview. But without any further ado, in keeping with tree action tradition, our first question that we ask all our guests to get us rolling. Could you share with us the first memory you have of feeling a connection to a tree or trees?
Wow. So I grew up in South Africa, in Durban, South Africa, and we used to build a lot of tree houses.
Wow.
And we had some massive oak trees. I remember we had avocado trees on our property. Anyway, this one really big oak in the left-hand side of our property took up a big swath of canopy, and it was only probably 8 to 10 feet from the ground to the lowest crotches, and then it just branched off into multiple stems. And we had a pretty elaborate treehouse in that tree. And then we moved into the city, and in our backyard we had a huge elm tree, and we had like a 10-story treehouse in there from all types of junk that we found in the woods, and you know, it was ridiculous. And there was, of course, nobody was climbing on ropes or anything like that. Nobody ever fell out of a tree. You know, there was never any close calls or anything like that. We somehow, as little kids, you know, into our probably early teens, we were able to climb around and scamper around in the system, and it wasn't. My father didn't come out and pay somebody to get the treehouse built. We built it ourselves, and it wasn't. You probably could have stayed in it, but it was more, just of a kind of a plaything during the day, and to get way up into the canopy of a tree, and that's, I've always had a connection, and that was one of the things, I guess, right? Was, and then we'd climb trees. We'd just climb trees for the heck of it and sit up in the top of them, and be cradled by the three points of contact, right? That's all you need, right? So,
Yeah. Well, it's a good rule to follow when you're free climbing. It provides a reasonable amount of security and protection from falling.
yeah,
One
no
hand,
ropes
2 feet.
required, right?
One hand, 2 feet is a pretty common scenario because you got to work with the other, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It may be arguably the first tree climbing lesson that anyone ever receives, right? Is just make sure you're holding on when you got both feet on something.
Yeah, so it goes back a long way, right? Pretty much,
You said,
And you know what? My folks always had us out. I was fishing when I just started walking. So I was always into the great outdoors and
yeah.
engaging with nature and that kind of thing. So it was kind of a natural fit for me.
I always find it interesting when people, they ponder this question. It quickly often evolves into being outdoors, but how trees are just sort of always a part of the outdoors in most cases, right? Like they're part of it. They're part of the if you're fishing, obviously you're not fishing out of a tree, but the trees are part of the shoreline, and they're just there, and when you think about it, you just include trees in the whole outdoor experience.
Yeah, well, listen, I've hooked trees on a fly line on a back cast, so they do come into play, right?
Yeah, yeah. We were fishing there at Niagara River. Me and a couple friends, Andrew and John. They both been on the show actually, and John got one. Trying to cast near the shore for the bass, right? And he got a hook wrapped in a willow or something, and he was trying to shake it off, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll back in and get it." But he forgot he had a bunch of rods up on the bibini, and they were sticking up, and
Oh
and
God.
we back in, and suddenly you hear the noise, and then you look up, and these rods are already quite severely being loaded, and one breaks, and then you're trying to move the boat, and it suddenly turns from a real slow, careful drift over to try to get close enough to get this hook to just chaos, and rods bending, and the boat shifts, and one breaks, and there's yelling and screaming, and only to realize the Fish and Wildlife's on the dock about 20 yards away watching the whole thing happen, and a few other fishermen that are fishing off a dock, and we just look like total amateurs suddenly. But the tree definitely had its way with us there for a little bit, but we ended up losing a rod, but we got the hook.
No,
Fishing.
I was out on a lake there a few years ago, and we were fishing for bass as well, up in up near Windsor, Nova Scotia. And one of my buddies, Dave Barry, he's an Irish dude that came over here about 20 years ago, and really good arborist. He ran a company out in Ireland, and then he moved over here. He worked for Asplin for a bit, and then did his own thing. And he and I did a lot of work together. So he's out in the boat with me, and there are probably four boats. We've got this little fishing competition going on, bass off, and we by the way, this will be our 26th consecutive year this year, bass off.
Wow.
But and this time, the last since 2009, it's been at my camp. So it's we switched lakes, but we still have the same group.
Right.
So anyway, Dave is casting, and he gets his lure caught up in a pretty big pine tree, white pine. So I said, just snap the damn line. He's like, no, I'm climbing that. So up he goes, right? No, 3 points of contact. This is the story, right? And um, I got some pretty good pictures of him way up there, right over the. I was just waiting for the branches to start snapping him in full in the lake, right? But he got the lure back, and nothing broke. He didn't fall in, but it was quite funny. Dedication, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the things you'll do for lure.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good for a laugh too,
It's
right?
almost more than the things you do for love.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hilarious. So, you said multiple stories. Like you actually had, like did you have hatches through in this treehouse, or how did you, like, you had levels?
Oh, yeah. So we kind of it's very intricate, and it's actually now that you mention that, it's hard to think that we came up with the idea, but we had I think we had like 10 stories, but they were on different limbs,
Yeah.
and it was really just bits of metal that we found, and I mean there was an old bicycle up there for God's sakes, right, and a mattress and
A
boards
mattress.
and that kind of thing, somewhere to hang out, right,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and it wasn't to take any females up there because we didn't know what the hell we were doing, but it was just the kids, and we just used to climb that. And I'm pretty sure we were well up into 60, 70 feet, and
Wow.
clambering around. And we just put pieces of wood onto the trunk. Well, obviously we were bolting them in at that time, and climbing up that way, or a rope. We had a rope system coming down on the backside to escape if you had to.
Wow. So you just
Sort
thought
of
it,
like what's that?
you had it thought through.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts, right? And I remember one time, you remember that dart game, lawn darts.
Yeah.
Well, we were whipping those things around in the backyard, and one got stuck in that massive elm tree way up, and we forgot about it. And I was in the backyard. We were kicking a soccer ball around one time, and this damn thing came down, and it literally, and this is crazy. It sounds crazy, but it literally landed on my right foot between my big and second toe,
No.
and did not pierce my foot. And I'm like, we've got that damn treehouse. We should have retrieved that thing, you know. So
You know, I'm pretty sure that game got discontinued. Like they banned it because there's so
oh
many
god, I
injuries.
mean, it could have gone right through the skull,
Oh
right? So
yeah.
it's
Well, there was a
like a
lot of injuries for throwing it hard, throwing it, looking where'd it go, and it comes down on because they were quite heavy and they'd stick in the ground pretty good. Lawn
yeah,
darts.
no, it's
Yeah, what a concept. Then they
you
came
know
out with
what?
their blunt ended and they were just heavy and they just stuck. They just kind of splatted instead of sticking in the ground.
Yeah, what fun is that? That's not a sport.
You ever play lawn darts, Tony? You must have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then when we couldn't get them commercially anymore, we made our own.
Oh,
Yeah, because like I said, if it's not like they're not danger and risk involved in it, we're not interested in this. Like, if we wanted to play checkers, we'd get out the checkerboard, but no, we had to. Yeah, we wanted to throw sharp things around. So, and then we quickly graduated into throwback. So,
right, right. Yeah, I guess a lawn dart you could. I bet you at least one person probably thought of tying a throw line to that thing and whipping it.
Oh yeah, well, you know what? So I have a dartboard here. I'm in my rec room right now, but I have a dartboard up here on the right hand side. And whenever people come over to play, especially new people, when they're into the game, when it's my turn and they're kind of not paying attention, I'll unscrew the sharp end,
Yeah.
and then as they look at me, I throw the dart at them. Right? It's just like a wake up call, right? Snap out of it. Like,
Right. And what the your brain would interpret and extrapolate the consequence quite immediately, and then you don't have time to react in that sudden reaction of like how bad is this going to be. I know
well,
my
that's where I figure out whether I want to work with that person on a tree job, right?
that's your test.
mhm.
I know my sons used to play this game. I think they called it beer darts. And everyone they'd sit around on bales, right? These are all like farm ranch kids, and put a beer between like at their feet. You had to have it by your feet. And then they had a dart, and you got to throw the dart, and if you hit the can and punctured it, you had to drink it. But like
Oh
when you're
yeah.
aiming at, and this would progress into, like boots would get pierced and calves and knees and shins, and it was, mostly harmless. I always watched him play it, and I never did play it as a kid. I was, I never did get involved with the young lads doing it, but it was quite a game they had. You ever heard of that one?
What's that?
That beer darts.
No, I mean that's where you don't unscrew the end, right?
No, that's right. No, they were full on. They were full on. Oh, it's funny.
I haven't played that.
The dart one would be a great test because if someone like snatches it out of the air with two fingers, you just hire them. Like you have a job. Come on. Go.
Right.
Oh yeah, $50 an hour, right on the spot,
Exactly.
right?
Well,
Exactly. Sign you right up.
I remember there was a guy that was he was kind of the lead instructor of a arborist course, and they would have interviews, and he would throw a tennis ball at them, like he'd be bouncing it as he's talking, and then he'd like chuck it to them kind of randomly and without kind of warning, and if they caught it or they could handle it, then that was almost a surefire way for him to figure they could probably handle being an arborist. And he used it quite, discriminately. And if they just like totally didn't react, he's like, yeah, no, they're not, no chance, no chance. But it's interesting you say that, Tony, like if they were able, like what is it about that? Is it the cat-like reflexes, or is it the awareness, or what? Like, why would that make a good arborist?
I mean, I think it would, for me, one, it'd be impressive with the reflexes, but I think more importantly, it would just be the fact that, like, the situational awareness of it, right?
Yeah.
That ability to react instantly. I mean, when I had to hire people and was interviewing people, I used a much simpler thing. I would schedule the job interviews for like 5:30 in the morning, like, because that's like we start at 6:30. I'm like, if you can't show up for a job interview at 5:30, you sure as shit ain't showing up for work on time at 7. So it was sort of a litmus test. It worked pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, I like that. And if they're good, you hire them for that day, right?
Well, if they show up at 5:30 in the morning, they're sending me a pretty good message. Like, they either really, really need the job or they don't mind getting up early. Both are good messages, from my standpoint, right? Yeah, and if they show up, it's like, all right, come on, let's go out and do a trial day. Pay you cash.
Oh,
Yeah.
Don't say that out
I
loud.
like that.
Sure, we could do that.
Yeah.
I wasn't pay- I was It was a gift
Right.
that I was giving them, and then what we did during the day was our own business.
You know what? So I like this, we're getting together and doing this at a distance or whatever. But one of the things I have trouble with is doing interviews this way, right?
Okay.
Because really, I've hired some interesting characters doing this, and I've done
I
a
see.
lot
I
of
see.
interviews, right?
Yeah.
And I'd really like to see people face to face, like especially for physical, hard,
Yeah.
engaging type work, right? But I mean, this all came about because of COVID, right? So
Yeah.
but before COVID, let's say I interviewed 6 people and 3 of them were good candidates. Then we'd bring those 3 in to do a tree climbing test,
Right.
basically the same test, to get your tree worker qualification or whatever,
Yeah.
and put them up in a tree, and they got to work around this, a little bit of a work climb type thing. Show us 6 knots, get them right, all that kind of thing. So I'm hiring 2 new guys or 2 new staff in the next couple of months. The job should go out fairly soon, and I've been mulling around doing the tree climbing again.
Oh, yeah.
And HR is like, well, do you want to do it or don't you want to do it? And it's if it's people I don't know, people from elsewhere that
Yeah.
that do a good interview and stuff, I sure want to know how they climb. And
Yeah.
the alternative is to find somebody in their province that I know
Yeah.
who can do something with them.
Right.
Hey, do you mind getting this person out and just doing a quick work climb with them, or making sure they know their knots, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
We take for granted that people are great, and like Tony said, you bring a person in, work for me for cash for a day or 2 days. I mean, it's municipality, right? But it's once you're hired in, you're on sort of a 3-month probationary period, but you can learn a lot in 3 months, right?
Yeah. You can learn a
So
lot
it's,
about.
it's an interesting concept, hiring.
Yeah,
through the
we
internet,
went
right?
we went back to or started doing climbing tests for hiring at the family company, just because what somebody says on paper isn't, yeah, I've climbed 50 trees, it's the classic, I've got 10 years experience, when you find out they have 6 months experience 20 times over is what they really have, right? So we've gone to do the climbing test, and I think in any experienced arborist, I can watch someone climb for 2 to 3 minutes, and I know, but I can give you a real good idea of where they're at, where their skill set is, and that's not because I'm great. I just seen a lot of people climb trees. I've climbed a lot of trees, and our climbing tests are only 10 or 15 minutes, but my mind is pretty much made up within the first 5, because we've had the people some people just interview well, right? Like, they just interview well, but they might not be great workers. And when you do an interview like this, like something online, you can interview really well but not be a good worker, or you might be a great worker but not interview well. So I'm with you. I'd much rather see them in person. And then we've always given the climbing test, at least for the last 6 or 7 years, because it works, right?
Yeah.
It's an investment in time and money if we don't. So
So I mean, a lot of your folks are coming from Alberta, though, right?
I'm down in the States, so like I said, we get, and it's more and more to find enough people to even settle for interviews. We've had to deal with basically headhunters, right? Recruitment services, and they're pulling people in based on the set of qualifications that we give them, which saves us a lot of legwork. But I would say of of 50 people we interview, there's probably only 7 to 10 people we actually sit down and talk to in person, and of those 7 and 10, maybe hire 1 or 2. I mean, it's
Yeah,
it's just kind of the way it is.
Tony's
Yeah,
in,
it's tough, right?
Tony's in Pennsylvania, Kevin, and yeah, his
So
brother
that's
has.
home base, is it, Tony?
What's that?
Yeah, that's home base for you.
Yep, yeah, I live in the southeast corner of Pennsylvania, just outside of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Me and all the Amish.
And his brother has a company that a fairly substantial company that Tony has worked for a long time. And but I think what you're talking about here is pretty much something that affects any tree service anywhere. Like people always ask me, just the other day, someone said their nephew or no, it was a friend's son is thinking of getting. He said, "Is there work in this kind of thing?" And I said, if you're a good worker and you learn, especially climbing, like you're never not going to have work. Like you name an arborist company that isn't always like if someone's good, and by when I say good, I mean that is capable of tying a knot and climbing a tree safely, and it's obvious that they can do that with some degree of proficiency, maybe not even efficiently, but safely. That's a pretty big bonus, right? And then the other part is show up, which seems to be a real big thing these days. Especially, it seems like since COVID, you hear more and more workers like, we'll be on course and we're doing our attendance and, well, and I said, is this all who's on? We know we're missing 3 people. Yeah, well, welcome to another day, because it seems to happen much more frequently that it's like that people just don't show up, even for a couple days, and not really even to say anything. And because everyone's looking for workers, they're not. In the past it'd be, well, that's don't bother coming back, right? But now it's like, well, if they can work, at least you want to. I don't know. Is that happening out in the east there, and like where you guys are? Is that a thing?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, tree services here are always tapping into me. Hey, do you know anybody who'd be interested in coming in? And I'm going, yeah. Well, you know what? I'm thinking the same thing, right? So, and I'm not. I definitely do not go out knocking on private companies' employees' doors.
Right.
I don't say to them, hey, there are these jobs coming up or anything like that. That's their business to look into that if they're interested. But the municipality type jobs are sought after, especially by guys that have been in the industry for quite a long time, and their bodies are starting to take a beating, and they want a little bit of flexibility in their life. They 10 to 12 hour days are hard,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And they want to be able to spend their weekends with their families and get away and do this kind of thing, right? So when those jobs come up, that we usually get, well, I'll tell you what, the last job I ran was probably 2 months ago. One guy resigned and went to NSP, which is a great opportunity for him because he's a young fella.
Yeah.
So I ran the competition, and I think I had like 23 applicants. Now,
Wow.
that's a lot, but a lot of them are not, they've never been outside, or they've never looked at a tree, or so you pare that down by probably 12 to 15, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got some that are, well, I have a house plant that I like to water, and I'm really keen, and they don't actually realize what the job entails. And it's not just so much as like you can learn the job. I want people coming in, men or women coming in that have some experience, that can blend in with the staff and work with anybody.
Yeah.
They don't mind the kind of a diverse background, and the more diverse background they come from, the better, because you're bringing different ideas and
Yeah.
knowledge into the system, right? And we appreciate that. We might pare those 23 down to 3 or 4 interviews,
Wow.
and then 1 or 2 are, one's spectacular and one's mediocre. And I'm interested to see what comes out of these 2 that I'm putting out now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to get 1 spectacular and 1 mediocre, or we're going into the season too, so we may be in luck. We may get a good turnout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, and here's the other thing in urban forestry at HRM, and I think in a lot of municipalities where snow is a big factor in the winter,
Mm-hmm.
our urban forestry staff are involved in snow.
Right.
So if we get a big event, if we get a big snowstorm or an ice storm or something like that, they all have routes picked and trucks to drive, and some of them are shovelers, some of them
Right.
drive plow trucks, some do sidewalk operations, that kind of thing. But when there's an event on, they're all in it.
Right.
Then when that event is over, they're back to urban forestry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the managers accept that urban forestry during storms we'll get damage and stuff like that. So they do kind of let our guys go earlier if we need them. They don't stick around and do the constant night after night or day after day of
Right. Right.
snow clearing or just cleaning up.
Yeah.
If we have stuff going on, if we didn't, like, a lot of the storms this winter were just snow, which is really abnormal out here. For the last 10 years, it's been snow and then rain and then freezing rain and then high winds, and then you get damage every
Right.
storm.
Right.
But now it's just been snow this winter, which is great. So we haven't had that much damage related to winter events. So it's people have to wrap their heads around that, right? You're coming from working almost full time somewhere potentially
Yeah.
as an arborist into a system where probably for 4 months, 3 to 4 months, you're going to be involved in snow, and it could be full on,
Right.
might just be intermittent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're a junior person, you could end up on a swing shift that is nights when you're in snow,
Right.
and then the next day you're off, and then back to days the following day. So your whole system is messed up, and your routine gets messed up, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It takes we don't have anybody exempt from snow except the supervisors if they want to be. If they want to be involved in snow, they can. But I mean, I stepped out of snow probably 6 or 7 years ago. I always said that I would help if there was a massive storm, if somebody needed help. But there's enough tree stuff going on that I don't need to be involved in that.
Right. 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 Yeah. It's and there is a lot of tree services that dabble in snow, and some more than others. Did you guys ever do that, Tony, or you guys never did?
No, we don't really get it consistent enough down
Right.
here
Right.
to base anything off of. And every time we tried, we would basically subcontract with like a landscape company or something, and it never worked out well. We just ended up taking all the blame and making very little money and beating the shit out of our equipment and having to replace shrubs that we didn't rack, that kind of stuff. So, well, what we do, we look at snow removal here as sort of a service that we will offer for some of our higher end clients, right? So if we have a client that we do a lot of work on and they call up and say, hey, I need some help here, we'll send some guys over, absolutely, and some equipment, just because that's customer service. And while we service trees, it's a customer service business, but we don't get it consistently enough where I'm at to make any bank on it, right?
Yeah, you know what, and it keeps your clients kind of
Right.
hooked, right?
Right. Yeah, and it just, like I said, and it was always be a one-off thing, and and it was the guys and girls would be, but they kind of liked it. Like they wouldn't want to do it consistently, but go out and do a couple days of snow shoveling for a couple clients, run the skid loader around a little bit, was okay. But most of them just like the time off, right? Like I said, we don't get
Yeah.
that heavy snow that often, so they get 3-4 days off in the middle of the winter. Like, yeah, that's cool.
You make an interesting point about the municipality versus private, like as far as even the work and what you do, right? Like there is quite a noticeable difference, and it is interesting the trend of, I guess, older arborists often will gravitate out of the private into a municipal job and usually retire from that job, right? You see it quite often.
Yeah.
Well, you're an example of that yourself, Kevin, right? Like,
Yeah, I've been here 16 years now. And
Yeah.
I mean, I honestly, in the last 5 years in private industry, I was looking for something kind of like this.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was getting into. Honestly, I thought it would be an easy transition, but it isn't. Most likely because you come from a really high-driven workspace, right?
yeah,
And to a workspace where it's definitely there's no major pressure.
yeah,
As long as you go out and you get 4 or 5 jobs done a day, and they can be big, small, whatever. A lot of the work is driving in the city. You're in the truck quite a bit.
yeah,
Some of the guys that their base is downtown Halifax, and the area that they work in is Bedford, Sackville, Hammonds Plains. So they're they may they may drive out there to do a few jobs, and then they get an emergency job somewhere else, and that's a half hour or 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
So they go and do that job, and then they go back out to the area that they've got their work plans for. So there's a heck of a lot of driving. It's We don't breathe down their necks as long as they are steady and consistent, and our constituents in HRM are being treated with respect and getting service in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
That's what we ask for. It's different where you can walk away from a job in the private sector. You can
Right.
pick and choose, right? You don't get to pick and choose in the municipality. You deal with everything that comes because we're dealing with city trees.
Yeah. And you deal with
So
the
you have to function in that space where people are maybe not as excited to see you sometimes.
right. That's what I was going to say. You have to take the verbal discussion that may not be friendly or nice. I pay your
Well,
wages.
and most of the time, yeah.
The classic. I pay
Most of
your
the time, the
wages.
supervisor or manager, you try to clean that up before the staff get there, but they still take the abuse at times, right?
Right, for sure. So how did you make your transition from South Africa into the tree world? How did that journey go for you?
So we came over in '87 to Gander, Newfoundland, right in the middle of the winter, and in South Africa we'd gone to some store that sold winter jackets for people who go hiking in the mountains, whatever, right? So I had this crazy thick winter jacket. But we landed in Gander, and when we were flying, so we flew to Toronto the night before, and we got off there and stayed in Toronto, and then we flew back to Gander, Newfoundland. And that day when we were flying back in, it was the most beautiful sunny day you can imagine from the sky. And I was looking out the window, and I could see the snow. And we'd had snow one time when I was in boarding school in South Africa, and we strapped on boards on our feet and stuff, and we skied down the hills and threw lots of snowballs, broke a lot of windows. We were total dicks. But by 11 a.m., all of that snow was gone. And that was the only time I really saw snow up close. So we're flying into Newfoundland. I'm looking out the window, and I've got my shorts and flip-flops on, and I had a long sleeve shirt on, but I wasn't actually prepared, right? So the pilot landed, and I'm pretty damn sure he did this on purpose to screw me over. But he landed and he stopped about 100 meters from the ramp to the airport, right?
Yeah.
And I came down the stairs, and it was a howling wind, probably minus 50. I don't know what it was, right? But it felt like it. And I slipped and fell right on the runway, and people were just laughing and like, "You're not prepared, you idiot!" I'm like, "Don't you know where you are?" Anyway, so then
Wow.
my dad took a job on a 1-year work term or probationary work term as a orthopedic surgeon at the hospital there, and we were basically coming for a year to start with intentions of staying, but that was kind of our segue into staying in Canada. So anyway, that guy picked us up from the airport with all of our stuff and proceeded to drive around Gander, showing us all the sights, right? And there were only 12,000 people back then, so there wasn't a lot to see except the big M.
Right.
And I'd never seen a McDonald's sign before, and he said because we had that big M, we were a city, right? And I just said, "Hey man, I don't care. Just take me to someplace warm."
Wow, what an
But
introduction.
anyway, so that's how I came to Canada, and then I went into grade 12 for a couple of years or a year and a half. I did school there, and then went to Acadia University, did biology and geology. Ended up ended up going overseas in is it 94? 1994. I went overseas on an International Agricultural Exchange Association kind of swap thing.
Yeah.
And the three places I picked in order were the Netherlands, Germany, and Denmark. And I got the Netherlands, which was great because I was hell-bent on studying horticulture.
Right.
And actually, while I was at Acadia, I took 1 year off, and I went to King's Tech College in Kentville, and I did horticulture for 1 year.
Okay.
But that actually got me like the mind working in a different direction. So I went over to the Netherlands. I worked there for 4 months. Had a blast, as you can imagine. Um,
Yeah.
we don't need to get into any details there because it's very very vague, right? But while I was over there, I heard that I got into Olds College,
Okay.
into the landscape management program.
Yeah.
So I came back. I was thinking of extending my stay over there because the guy I worked for was offering me a full-time job and all types of things. So I came back, ended up at Olds. There was this elect, elective course called Arboriculture that one Dwayne Newstetter was running, so some of the turf grass management guys were like, Kevin, that is right up your alley, man. You need to take that. I think Gavin Howell was in that at some stage,
Yeah. Yeah.
Travis Klimchuk,
Yeah.
Robin Adair,
Yeah.
a bunch of other guys whose names I forget who will be pissed at me, but
Hey,
they all came back and said, hey, this is a great course, you should take it, and I
Brad
took it.
Luft was in there.
Brad Luft, yeah,
Yep.
Brad's a great guy. And everybody went off into that world, right? From
Yep.
turf grass, which was kind of freaky, right? But
Yep.
I also had my plan was also to build golf courses or at least be in that realm, right, of designing. And although I was on the landscape management side,
Yeah.
I did a lot of turf grass courses as well. But I as soon as I think you guys took us out, me and Jay Jorgensen and all the other, there were 13 or 14 people
Yeah.
in the class, and we went for the final day. I think we went out to a bunch of poplars
Yep.
running along the main drag coming in there,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you were putting people into the trees, and the trees were getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Jason and I were like, "What the hell's going on here?" Right? We're not getting a tree. We're not getting a tree. And then we get to the end of the road, and there are these two fucking monsters. And you're like, "You guys flip a coin. You're taking those two trees." So it was that was adrenalizing that day, and confidence building, and you had one of your mates up possibly from Arboriculture. I can't remember who
Yeah.
it
I think
was.
Chris was there. Chris.
Chris, yeah,
Yeah.
Chris was there. So you were in one tree, he was in another, and we were climbing between the trees, and yeah, it was a fantastic day, and that's really what set me on that journey, right? And I'm still there, right?
Yeah.
So thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It was funny. That was how many from that class. There was like that class ran before there was the 2-year diploma. So it was like an intro to arboriculture kind of thing. And that particular year, there was every one of those people you mentioned, and pretty much all of them still like have had a career. They've been 30 years in arboriculture, right? From that class. It was pretty interesting. It was a fun class to do too. And I remember it well. And I've watched your career go from here to there, and then you're in Calgary for a while. No, you go out east, and then we bump into each other every once in a while. Last fall was a fun
Yeah, it
experience
was
as
awesome.
well. Yeah, and it's been good to
Just
watch.
a day, right? We can knock off a lot of conversation in a day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you went from like you finished your Olds thing, and then you ended up working in Calgary, right?
Yeah, I went to Arbicare. So actually, the reason I went to Arbicare is because we were at a party at your place one time, and Andrew Hordak was there,
Yeah,
and that's another story altogether, right? The aliens, and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, that's right.
anybody who watches this and was there will know what I'm talking about. They may not want to think about it, but
Well,
that's
that
a
was
fact
we were
about
all
it.
in the
But
hot tub, and you spotted it. The
yeah,
something.
something flew overhead, right, and made a kind of a whooshing sound,
Yeah,
and then it came back every 10 minutes, and then it circled. Everybody watched it circle into the universe, up into the sky, right?
yeah, yeah,
And also, one of the guys kicked the ghetto blaster into the hot tub. I don't know if you remember that. And
yeah, yeah,
Robin Adair caught it before it landed in the water.
yeah, yeah. I remember
Everybody was standing on the deck, barefoot in water and stuff, and I was yelling, "Everybody stand still!"
that. It was a waterproof Sony. That's why it was out there.
Oh God, man, that was. I thought everybody was going to die that night.
Well, the cord unplugged though when it got bumped, which was also
It
good.
did.
But
It
it caused quite a
unplugged
reaction.
literally just before it went in, literally before Robin got it in his
Yeah,
hands, right?
yeah. And Robin's been on
Pretty
the
wild.
show. Robin's been on the show. I don't know if you've listened to his episode.
Yeah, I've seen it.
We ended up talking mostly about hockey because of his son.
Oh no, that's awesome. Absolutely right.
Yeah,
It's just a
yeah,
discussion to have some fun.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
interesting.
I went to Arboriculture, right? And Andrew, I was pretty highly motivated, and I wanted to learn how to climb and run everything and all that. So I was put on the crew with Andrew, and he put me up in the bucket a lot, taught me a lot of stuff, right? So we ended up, he and I ended up, doing a lot of stuff down the road together as well, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. So did you when? I know. I remember coming out to Halifax after you'd moved out there, and you had like from the some injury from the harness that caused some kind of disability, debilitating things because of the way it pinched your hips, wasn't it?
yeah, I was pinching my inner thigh, right? So that
Right.
was the old system that kind of pushed your thighs together.
Yeah.
And that was being clipped onto a D ring here and a D ring there that kind of slid around, but they didn't always move.
Yeah.
So sometimes they'd slide all the way over there, and then you wouldn't be able to get yourself back into
Yeah.
a normal position. So eventually, and I contacted some folks in the States. I forget their names right now, but and they made some suggestions to me. So I ended up getting
Yeah.
a glide light that was just like some sort of D ring, floating D ring on the front, and that made a big difference. But at that time, I'd really done damage to my hips, right? And I've been able to climb since then. I climb on a notch. What the heck's it called? Can't think of the name of it right now, but I've got a notch harness now.
Yeah.
It's lightweight. It's phenomenal. It really is. It really gives me a lot of support. It's got like double support in the front and on the back, and it's fairly wide on the back, and it's that's with a floating ring on the front, and I find that has really made all the difference. So now, I mean, the pain that I have from climbing now is not, it's not hip related. I've got some shoulder issues and my knee issues and stuff like that, but
Right. Right. Yeah.
I do exercises every morning, and I make a smoothie and throw some collagen in it and that kind of thing. So and I keep climbing because it's a what I say is arboriculture is not a career. It's a lifestyle, right?
Right.
You Once you're in it, and if you love it, you stay in it in some aspect, in
Right.
some respect. I will climb until I absolutely cannot climb anymore. Now, I'm not climbing every day. I'm not a working arborist, so to speak. I do 30 jobs a year for myself, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
I keep my head, my brain's tuned in and my head screwed on by having fun with friends
Yeah.
and making a little bit of cash on the side, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's also the kind of thing once you know how to do, and people find out. Like just yesterday, the friend I was talking to, he's bought a new property or a new place to live, and he's like, I got these trees, and I haven't talked to him in quite a while, and it was nice to get a call out of the blue, but you realize at some point that it's so. I got this new place and I have these trees. After the small talk, it's like, okay, all right, got, and I'll send you some pictures. I was just wondering if you could let me know if I did what I need to do, and and invariably it turns into maybe a little job or something. You go and sometimes I do it for fun, and sometimes they give you a little money, but it's just you just can't get away from it, right?
Yeah,
Especially when you have the equipment, you got tools and stuff. It's like tools that most people don't really have, and you have the ability. So, why not, right?
yeah. A buddy of mine's old man called me last night and he said, "Hey, I've got this big tree in the backyard. The big limb broke off. It took the neighbor's power down or something like that. Can you come take a look at it?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll come around." So I'm going to go around there later this afternoon. I'll come around and take a look at it. So he says, if you take it down, what do you want? So the last time I did a job for him, I got half a deer. Because his thing is hunting, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I said, give me a half a deer in the fall or whatever. So that's what I got. I got a half a deer, which is great. And then, so I said to him, so he goes, well, you're going to charge me for this job, right? And I said, well, the last time you gave me half a deer, this time I want a good bottle of scotch, right? And that's really if I'm doing work for friends and stuff, that's really
Yeah,
give me something I can go sip when I'm done, you know what I mean? But
yeah, yeah. It's fun to be able to do that, and tree work's definitely like that. I don't know if it's the same with plumbers and carpet layers or drywallers. Maybe it is. Tony, you probably get that
Oh
happening,
yeah.
right? Like,
Oh yeah. I always tell people if I could work on the barter system and not get paid another actual piece of currency, I would be all for it. It's just not possible in this world, but I'm all for the barter system. Like
yeah, no, I love it.
just you got something I need, I got something you need. Let's figure it out, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm slowly building up my repertoire of, the plumbers and carpenters and those kind of guys that I need.
yeah,
Hey, I'll do something for you. Just give me a call, right? So, and I like to try and get something done before I invite them over to do my stuff. Hey, remember that time? I think everybody's pretty good about that.
So, well, what do you think is that? Well, your story of climbing that tree. I'm curious about that day because I would do different things. We would climb the poplars. We would also climb spruce on one of the days to get the different kind of trees. But you said it was a pivotal thing for you. Was it the adrenaline or the experience or what do you how would you encapsulate that where you got bit by the tree bug sort of thing?
Uh, yeah, you know what? Adrenaline it definitely played into it. But I will tell you that. So I was up in the tree and we were climbing around, and I think you were on the ground, and maybe Chris was in the other tree, and with Jason, and you said, okay, now I want you to transverse, from that one tree to the next tree, cross over, and the limbs were kind of touching; they were fairly close, but I was still probably 55, 60 feet up,
Yeah.
and I was like, "What are you nuts? I'm not climbing across there, right?" And you're like, "No, no, no, we'll walk you through it." And and you were like, "Yeah, Jason, you're going as well, right?" And we were both looking at each other up in these trees, going, "These guys are crazy, right?" So, but once a limb walked out and managed to get onto the other limb, and then get across the other tree, and then pull my rope out and start working in that tree, I was like, "Man, I'll never have to go back on the ground again, right?" And that was a huge confidence booster. And I remember the last day I worked at Arboriculture, I was out with, it was me and Brad left,
Yeah.
and another gentleman. I believe he passed away a number of years ago, but
Ray.
he was on the ground for us.
Okay.
He was the stump grinding guy from Arboriculture when I was there.
Okay.
God, I can't remember his name, but he was such a nice fellow, right? And Jim Fisher said to me, on your last day, who do you want to work with? And I said, I want to go out with these two guys. And it wasn't a 1 day thing. It was like our last project was 3 or 4 days, and it was to a property just outside of Calgary that had a really steep hillside covered in pine trees. Now I may be mistaken saying lodgepole pines. Is that possible?
Yeah, it could be absolutely.
A lot of them were really old too, right?
Yeah.
And they'd never been touched, and they were in really rough condition. And between Brad and I, we literally went from tree to tree to tree, and we weren't touching the ground. We did that all day for 2 or 3 days, and we were letting stuff drop, and it was going down into the valley, and our man on the ground in the valley was firing it through the chipper. And the weather was fantastic. It was spring, and kind of 15 to 20 degrees, sunny days, no wind. It was just it was a dream job, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how I ended up at my days there, and then I went overseas to the Netherlands because I'd met my future wife, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All that.
I seem to recall a story you had about doing a tree job in the Netherlands. Was it after Arbor Was it before Arbor? Like you did tree work there too, did you not?
Oh yeah, yeah. So after Arbor I went. So after a year at Arbor I met Helma in the summer before, and then in the following April I flew over there, and I was intending to just go for 7 months, but I ended up staying for 2 years and 3 months, and then she came back with me. But I went over. I got a job with a company. At the time, it was called Haidemay, and then it changed its name to Arcadis. And they did a lot of road work and stuff all over the world. But they had 14 guys doing tree work in the Netherlands. And I was, I guess, the 14th or the 15th added to the team. And we were all over the place. We worked all over the joint. And those guys climbed on a slightly different system, kind of what you were talking about. They were doing double tie-in points and that kind of thing, and on one rope, not two ropes.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get their heads around my system. And I was like, "Don't worry about my system. You just climb on yours. I'll climb on mine." And so they'd have a loop or a ring right here that they'd sometimes tie into, and another ring right here at their waist.
Okay, a
So they'd
sternal.
use different rings for being tied into. I thought it was pretty sketchy running a chainsaw with a rope coming up like this, but that's if you grow up on that system, that was that's what you're used to, right? That's what you're safe with. I didn't see anybody do anything dangerous around those ropes, but I felt like for me it wasn't the right system for me, right? So we did a lot of climbing there. We did a lot of groundwork. We had cherry picker, high worker type things. The machine that you drive. You sit in the cage and you drive along with that base, and it's got a straight arm coming out that telescopes.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what those things? What are they called? Cherry pickers?
Well, then it had a bucket on the end.
Yeah. So it was like just a base with wheels
Oh,
on it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like a man lift, basically.
Yeah, that kind of thing with a straight telescoping chute
Yeah.
and going out to a double cage, right? So that's what we worked out of predominantly along the street sides, or whatever tree work we were doing, because everything was pretty much accessible. If you couldn't reach it with that and those things, I was working in those things up to 110 feet,
Wow.
which are pretty sketchy on a windy day. I'll tell you that. And I'll tell you a story quickly about. I was working for this guy Bart Jansen, and he had a company called Jansen Houthandel, which means Jansen wood handlers, or whatever if you want to call it. So everything we did was anything in the green industry, a lot of tree removals, pruning, and this guy would take on anything. It didn't matter how dangerous or crazy it was, he would take it on. But
Yeah.
the starting price, some of them, the starting rate would just be 15 grand flat rate for us to come out. And then the price on top of that, because some of the stuff, they had everybody come out and people were just going, "No way, we're not doing that." But guess who'd be doing it? We would, right? So I learned some I learned some crazy stuff, and I saw some people do some crazy stuff, but yet safely, right? We had the cranes in there. We had whatever equipment we needed to get the job done safely. He would just say, "Bring it in." You know, these people need it done. We bring it in, and a lot of them were for big companies and that kind of thing. So I remember one time he sent me out to look at a job. It was a whole row of black Italian poplar along the back of a whole bunch of glass greenhouses, and the space between the greenhouses and the fence next door, which was abutting a property that had a whole. You couldn't drop anything in that space. Let me put it that way. It was probably 6 feet behind the greenhouses, and the stuff was falling off these poplars. They were massive things, falling and breaking glass on the greenhouses. And I rock up there and I looked at it, and there was probably 8 trees. And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think there's any possible way to do this without damaging something." So I called him up, and he's like, "Yep, just tell them we're starting at 15K, and we'll give them we'll give them the price on top of that because we know we're going to damage stuff." It was absolutely impossible, right? And we did the job, but there was a few panes of glass broken. It was actually pretty trivial, but it took longer. It probably took, 3 or 4 days longer than so. That kind of covered us, right? But we were doing another job next to an old castle. The backyard was a bunch of moats and little waterways and little bridges and all types of things. It was kind of a weird spot. So this guy had bought this property. It was several hundred years old, or maybe older, and he was having the whole house renovated. And right next to the house, in a kind of a quad that was completely closed in with walls, were two massive London planes. And the guy wanted them out of there. Now there was nothing wrong with the trees, but he wanted them gone. So we brought in a massive crane, and we were working off the right-hand side of the house on the driveway, craning. We had a guy, we had Bart. Bart went up, he was climbing. I was running everything on the ground. I had guys in the back and front and all of our equipment on the ground. So at some stage, it was up against a clear blue sky. Bart was way up the stem of this thing, and I saw this kind of orange and white thing falling. And I'm looking, I'm going, what the hell is that? And when it reached the house, I realized it was like an 046 steel chainsaw, right? It came unhooked off his belt somehow from way up there. And it went down and it went through this window. And you know those windows that have like mesh wire in them?
Oh
Those
yeah,
old
yeah.
windows? It ripped right through that and it went through 3 floors into the basement where the painter guy was down there and he had his paint tins all over the place and it landed in amongst the paint and there was just multiple colors of paint on every wall, right? And the guy came running in. What the hell happened? So this saw was still running, laying on the floor amongst all the paint, covered in paint, right?
Well, that's a good still
I grabbed
commercial.
the saw, I went back out. Somebody had already hooked on another saw and sent it back up. I tanked it back up again. When that saw came down, I sent up the painted saw. And he's yelling, what the hell is this?
Oh yeah. There's so many that's part of the cool part about tree work too that you have to experience, right? Holy cow, what a great still commercial. From 100 feet
Yeah,
through a
man,
pane of glass and 3 floors into a bucket of paint and still running.
that's exactly what I thought when I walked in. I went, hopefully nobody's dead. And I walked in and the guy was like, he goes, holy smokes, what happened? And then the saw was still running, which was crazy. And the bar was like ever so slightly bent. I just took it up, put another bar on it, sent it back up, right?
Well, Tony, have you ever had heard of that one? A saw going through a house?
No, we've had them bounce across roads and all kinds of different things, but I haven't seen one go through a house.
The craziest thing I ever saw was a saw going through a chipper. We had this old lady chipper, and the boss I was working at, he'd kept the blower, the gas and oil, and the saw in the chipper mouth, and you close the feed table, and it would ride back there. So you always, when you started the chipper up, you'd take it out first, right? And we had been working on a job, and we were going back to finish, and there was some brush to chip in the front yard, and the stump grinder guy had come, and I was in the backyard showing him the stumps, and I heard the chipper fire up and everything, I heard a branch go through, and then I heard it shut down, and the guy I was working with comes back, and he's like, "Dude, we should just pack up and go home right now. I just chipped the 026." And I was like, "There's no way. Like, how you can't you can't chip a chainsaw." So I, run to the front and look in the back of the box, and there's just bits of chainsaw everywhere. And the crank was intact, and the bar was chopped in 3, but everything else was just obliterated. And I gathered as much of it up I could in the bag and showed it to the boss later that day. He wasn't impressed, but I couldn't believe. But that was an old lathe 816, and it had this weird drum. The drum wasn't solid. It had like a centerpiece where the bearings were, and then they were like plates that were like 2 inches, 3 inches wide, and then there was like 4 or 5 of them, and they were like discs that weren't, but it wasn't one solid drum, and the blades would bolt onto each one. So it were like they had these slits between the drum, and the thing chipped like crazy. And I think that allowed chips to go. I think that's the reason why the saw actually went through. The spark plug also wasn't damaged. It was just sitting by itself. It's the weirdest thing ever. I've seen hand saws and secateurs go through and stuff like that, but Yeah,
Shovels.
but the saw was not running, and it did not run. But that's pretty cool. Through a wire mesh window and through 2 floors. Wow. Yep. The things you see.
Yeah, things happen, right?
Yeah. Well.
We had another time out there when I was stump grinding, and we had a really tight confine where we were removing trees, dead oaks and stuff like that in this holiday park. I think it was in Germany, and the only way to get in with a stump grinder was through the cottages, and they'd have a little kind of quad in the backyard with a banked area, so you couldn't get anything down there. So we'd crane the trees out of there, and then I go through this cottage or cabin or whatever with the stump grinder, a small stump grinder, and I'm grinding the stump. And the only way I could work the stump was facing the cabin, and there was these big, double glass doors. So we had 4x8 plywood boards there to protect them. Anyway, a tooth came off, and I heard ding, but that was it, right? And I kept grinding or whatever, and then somebody who was standing up on the ridge behind me said, "Man, I'm pretty sure like there's a hole in that board right there." So I stopped and I looked, and sure enough, there was like a 2.5, 3 inch hole through the board, went through the glass on the other side, and was wedged in the wall on the other side of the bedroom in the cabin. And it was that time of the year that nobody was there. It was just they were doing maintenance, and they wanted us in to do the work and stuff. So there was nobody around, fortunately. But that's also where I got to see the velocity that a tooth can come off and go through a board, a 5/8 inch board, which is crazy, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what they'd do to you if you were standing there, right?
Yeah. It would definitely leave a mark.
Yeah, that's so these are the things where you live and you learn, right? And you know what, I don't mind talking about incidents and accidents because it really educates everybody else. And I am always intrigued in hearing and seeing incidents and accidents. I don't want to see them, but you see them and you go, hey, the little light bulb comes on, and you're going, hey, how can we do this differently, right?
Yeah. 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 Well, it's experience is the best teacher, right? And and in fact, difficult or harsh experiences are some of the best because you learn what not to do. Sometimes you get your test before your lesson, right? But it just is, and arboriculture, regardless of training, education is important, but experience and time in the biz, watching and experiencing things is just invaluable, and that's something you just don't. You can't give someone, you can't. You have to get it.
Yeah.
Time stands for this. I must experience, right? And it's a yeah, and it's what I find interesting about that whole concept is it's the more you learn and the more you see the less you realize you really actually do know because anything really can happen. It's like and truth is often stranger than fiction.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I'll talk to guys about things, and I encourage when we have staff safety meeting. We do one staff safety meeting a month where everybody in open forestry gets together, and then the guys do tailgates every day or whatever
Yep.
the supervisors have plans for. But at those tailgate meetings, I always encourage staff to talk about any near misses they've had, and it's like, please, it's an open forum. Some people might laugh. Some might shake their heads. Some might go, "Hey, you fucking nutcase," or whatever. But why the hell did you do that? I told you not to. Whatever it is. But we're a family here, and we all make mistakes, and we all need to learn from them, right? And if there's something, and then after somebody's told something, I'll always say, "What is it that you learned from that? How would you do something differently?"
Yeah, yeah,
It's the same as an incident report. At the bottom of an incident report, it says, how did the supervisor, or in the supervisor's words, what did you tell the staff member to do differently?
Yeah.
Well, I don't do that. I ask them, how would you do things differently? How would you, let them come up with, and sometimes they come up with something completely different to what I would have thought of. That's way better, right? So it's,
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we were doing
you have to put the ball in their court, right?
absolutely, and how people to think, facilitate thinking. We're doing a trainer course last week, and one of the declarations the students came up, a training declaration, was that teachers make mistakes and mistakes make teachers, which I thought was
Yeah,
a pretty insightful little ditty. And that often is the thing too. Like if like it is so valuable to share and to be willing to share, and because a lot of times, and I was actually, if I think back, there was things that Chris, you mentioned Chris, when Chris and I worked together, there was some incidents that occurred on the job incidences that
hmm
that we broke a carabiner, we broke a pulley, it was overload, and we didn't really know what happened. And we went to the boss and shared it. It was like you got oh well, that's just thrown away, but no one learned from it. Right? You didn't learn well, and even why? How did that happen? Like how did we break a 54 kN beaner? And like it wasn't even there. That's just like that's there should have been some learning come from that, right? And even to have it discarded, like it would have been something that should have been, what a great thing to have hung on the wall. Like, how did you do that? Well, let us tell you about that, because it just provoked thought, right? Like to have this war chest of trophies, I guess you could call them or whatever. And I'm sure Tony, you must have an ensemble of what not to do, and here's the proof.
Yeah, some of our best ones we keep hanging up in the shop. We have, blocks where the bushing pin came out and it got bent open. We have broken carabiners, a whole assortment of things.
And everyone tells a
Yeah,
story, and everyone has a lesson in it.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, actually, it's just we have a very old, like Generation 2 porter wrap that we use as a doorstop in the crew room. And I mean, these guys walk by it. It was the one that was called the porta crap. Remember, it had the little hook
Yeah, yeah.
instead of the ring, and it would always pop off. So we called it the porta crap. It's now a doorstop, but it like I'm watching these guys, and they've got just a couple years experience. They don't realize the amount of history they're walking by that's just sitting on the floor there, which is kind of neat. So I think all good arborist shops are like that, right? They have those little pieces of history around, and I mean. One of the most interesting ones I heard is there was a crew. It wasn't one of my crews. Heard this story through one of the regional training managers for a large company. We'll remain anonymous. But they had you put the chook on the chipper line. It's a big plastic hook that goes onto a chipper winch line. That way, if it gets sucked in, it's not metal. I think Yale rope makes it. But it's a big sort of plastic hook, and it's maybe 1-inch plastic, high density. And the guy came up with the idea to pull a small U-bush or like a Taxus stump out with this thing, right? So he hooks it up to this little stump that he's got to pull out, and in the process of pulling, the thing just explodes, right? It's gone, right? So they come out and they found all the pieces of it except one, which was maybe, it's probably 1 inch in diameter and maybe 2 or 3 inches long. They couldn't find it. They're missing this one piece, and they're trying to find it because they want to know where it went. Like it's not. And eventually, like the next day, this regional training manager goes back out, and he's just looking, and he notices across the street, he sees like this ding in the siding of the house. He goes over and he looks at it, and he's like, "Holy shit!" And he goes up, he knocks on the door, and says, "The man," explains this to him, and it went through the siding, through the sheeting. This is probably traveled 80 yards, right, through the sheeting, and it actually dented out the drywall on the inside. It didn't penetrate through the drywall, and they basically went in and dug the last piece of this thing out. And it's like, like don't use chipper winches to pull stumps. There's a lesson, right? But it just I'm like, okay, I won't do that anymore. All right, no, I wouldn't.
But
do that.
why? But why should you not use it?
Right.
Well, let me
Well,
tell you.
it's funny, right? Because they like the chook was designed because they were having if metal gets fed into your chipper, that's really bad. So they made one out of plastic, and then they were using extremely high tensile strength. It wasn't Amsteel, but it's an Amsteel like product, chipper winch line, which is great because if the line parts, it doesn't recoil. So all these safety features led to this chook exploding, right? Because there was no recoil on the line and all this going on. But it's because it wasn't being used to purpose, right? I mean, if a brush pile, like the brush recoils or something, so it's funny how it's like the machine was perfectly spec'd out to be safe if you used it as designed. The minute you got away from that design, terrible things could happen with safe equipment.
But tree people never like deviate
No,
from a design of a
never.
tool to modify it for a different application.
My favorite one though was when they were using so they had a nice big chipper. It was like a 20-inch chipper, and it had the feed chute that would the outfeed chute was hydraulically powered, and they thought this was the best thing ever to push trees over with. I'm like, you guys are doing what? They're like, oh, this thing's great. Watch this. I'm like, oh my god. Like, stop. Yeah, that was a good one. Like, yeah, that's a design. The machine being used not by parameters.
And we need to shoot a little longer, so we tied a couple
Exactly.
of poles on it. Now we can push.
Yes, so we can push more trees over from the side.
Well, my first experience with side load was it was the first time we got a bucket. I was at a company. The owner said, we need a bucket. We got it. We can't compete properly, and so we got this old bucket, and so now we got a bucket. And I never used a bucket. I'd only ever climbed. So we were doing this. It was an elm in a backyard in Edmonton, and we needed to. I thought, well, we could just swing it to do a side hinge and just swing it over the fence, and it'll drop in the alley. And it needed to swing a fair ways, and I'm like, I'll just go on up in the bucket. So I'll cut it. I'll leave a little thicker hinge, and I'll go over to the tip, and I rope tied on it, and I'll just boom sideways, rotate left. And thank goodness I didn't think of lifting it or something, right? So I'm pulling and pulling, and I didn't understand flex and flexure, and and then it finally goes, and it worked, but like I got slammed right, left, and like I bruised my hips, smashed into the side of the bucket, like it really. And I don't know what kind of load. The boom must have looked like a hockey stick, because the boom would have been. And I just didn't even think of it. But I realized if I was doing that in the vertical, I would have gotten launched, because I really flew side to side, right? And it's like, okay, that's this isn't like you gotta think about this a little bit. That was a test before the lesson. But I was so glad I wasn't lifting up. Because that would have been, oh man. And I don't know. I think I don't even know if I was tied into it. I don't know that I definitely didn't have a 5-point. I would have just been my climbing belt and just, used my lanyard if I even had it on. But the things we do and learn, right? Yeah. Yep.
Well, you know what? We've made it to a ripe old age, right? So we're a rare breed.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't killed us yet. It should be worth listening to. You mentioned your family, the family of the crew there, and we do call it the Human Forestry Podcast. Have you ever? Would you how would you describe the trees in your human forest of? What's the canopy like in the species? You got oaks, maples, you got some saplings, you got some old growth, you got an even mix.
Yeah, I mean we try to go with as many native species of the type Acadian type forest, but we do bring in other species as well. Don't have a problem with that, right? I mean, we do try other stuff and see how it fares. When I came on board, I started into planting and kind of mixing species or species of trees, whether they were native or not. But if I was planting 20 trees down a street, I'd have 4 or 5 different species kind of alternating and mixing it up and stuff. So that my thought was always that if something got into it, an insect or a disease or something like that, it wouldn't go immediately into the next tree and then immediately into the one after that. So like our elm trees, and we've got alleys of elms where a whole street is lined with massive elms, and they're beautiful. But we're having a little bit of an issue with DED creeping back in now. So this winter we took down, we probably lost 8 to 10 big elms this winter on the cyclic tree pruning project. So when we go back and plant that, we'll be planting some different species and probably a mix of 2 or 3 different types.
Yeah.
Now, when Crispin Wood came in, he goes, well, why don't we kind of go back to planting maybe three trees of the same species in a row, and then three of the next species. And I'm like, whatever. It's all it's all a learning curve. It's what is it for me it's about whether the tree is suited to the space and to the cultural aspects of the tree and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, I, in Halifax, predominantly Norway maples. A lot of them were planted after the Halifax explosion
right.
over 100 years ago, and they. I don't know how we got them. If there was like a big sale on somewhere in Norway, but we ended up getting a crap load of those. So they probably make up 30 to 35% of our canopy now, but it was a way higher number before. When I came to Halifax in 16 years ago when I started here, Norway's made up probably 45, 46% of the canopy. So it's as those trees age out or get damaged in storms or split apart or whatever, we replace them with something different. Uh, Native red species maples. We've got Acer rubrum, Freemanii, um, sugar maple, ginkgo,
Yeah,
uh, Japanese tree lilac. Um, we have some disease resistant American elms. They grow like a rocket out here. We do red oak, pin oak, bur oak.
yeah, yeah,
It's a There's a pretty big species list
yeah.
in on our website under the Urban Forest Master Plan, but it's we don't necessarily tap into that all the time. But that is what we accept from contractors if they're doing developments and that kind of thing, and they have to replant after we've lost city trees, that sort of thing, right?
Have you encountered any, like in your working there doing removals and pruning, where you found remnants or evidence of the, like you hear all the time people still finding shards of things in trees, like from the explosion. Have you had any interesting experience with that?
In private industry, I remember Matt Follett actually and I were working for Tree Works back in the day, and we took down a huge silver maple in the north end of Halifax, and I was up in the bucket, and when Matt felled the main trunk, it was on a development site. When he felled the main trunk, we decided to take a few slabs each, and he's like, "I'm going to make a table," and I thought, I'd probably do something similar. So I think we took four slabs out of this tree, and once we got into the center of it, there was a big chunk of metal, and it had some numbers etched in it, and it was gnarly. So it was definitely from the Halifax explosion. And I do hear there are a few apple trees that are still hanging around from that time in people's backyards in the North End. And every now and again, one of them comes down or has to be cut down, and people do find shards of stuff in them. So, you know, then the old trees that have whole columns of cement inside them,
Yeah.
about that, right? And we were, back in my tree works days 2 years ago, I took down I think it was a horse chestnut, and in the center of it, it had a pack of Export A cigarettes, still in the wrapper.
Really?
Yeah, and it was in a rotten core, like right in the center of the tree, and I just happened to cut through the top of that, and I looked inside. I'm like, what the hell's that? Put my hand in, pulled it out, busted open. We grabbed a smoke each, and we lit it. And we were standing on the side of the road smoking these cigarettes, the two of us, and man, like it was. And then I was thinking, what the hell am I doing? And it was kind of a little bit soggy. It was kind of weird, right?
Well, hey, why
because
not?
because you have to, right?
Well, of course you would. And just for our listeners, not everyone might know about the Halifax explosion. Just just remind everybody what happened.
So two ships. What are we at here? 2000. I think it was. I think the hundred years was in 2000 and where are we at? 2020 or something like that. I should know, but I can't remember exactly. But recently we passed the 100-year anniversary, and two ships um, collided. One was full of ammunitions,
Yeah.
I think either leaving or arriving at the ammunitions depot on the other side of the harbor in Dartmouth. Canadian Forces CFAD there. And these two ships collided, and there was this massive explosion that pretty much wiped out all of the North End and a lot of Halifax
Yeah.
in seconds. There were some real heroes there because there were people who managed to get telegraphs out and SOSs and things out for help. But there's a spot down near Spinnaker Drive on the northwest arm. There's actually a cannon laying there, and it flew like 4 kilometers or something as the crow flies and landed, and it's still laying. It's still exactly where it landed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what a cannon weighs, right? So, I don't know what they weigh, right? But
A lot.
damn
They
things
weigh a
are
lot.
heavy. And
Well,
if
then
you
it,
look at
it wasn't dynamite involved. I think there was gunpowder or dynamite.
gunpowder,
Gunpowder.
dynamite, all types of explosives, right, on
Yeah.
board these.
Full,
It might have
loaded
been both
full.
ships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah.
One of the ships was the IMO, and I forget the name of the other one. But like I say, I should know those right off my head, but I don't, because I'm getting old and
Yeah.
a little senile.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, interesting. You were talking about the different species of trees and that you have in your urban forest. Have you ever thought about the different the team of arborists that you have? You mentioned the family. Have you ever how important is it to have a varying species of urban trees in your urban forestry family as far as people goes, and ages and types? and how would you classify you got a bunch of oaks, you got a bunch of vine maples, or what?
You know what? In terms of age, they range from late 20s to early 60s,
So
right?
you got old growth to saplings, or what?
Saplings, yeah.
Yeah.
Some clematis there, and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you know what? Our canopy is diverse. Our population is diverse in HRM,
Yeah.
and we try to hire a diverse workforce to kind of match
Yeah.
our population, our residents, right?
Well, and I find it fascinating because it's very much like a forest is. Like you can't. Forest isn't a monostand, and it's a made up of different species, shapes, and sizes of all things,
Yeah.
and that's what makes a good forest, and what makes a good human forest too, right? And you've spent your whole career in the trees. Obviously, trees is part of it, but we can't do our jobs without interacting with people. Have you ever thought about what it is about trees or being involved with trees that has helped you, or that you've drawn parallels as a person in your life?
Um, I'm gonna. You guys must have heard about the trees that got damaged in Point Pleasant Park
Yeah, yeah,
a few years back, right? Um, I was really mad about that, and
it was vandalism, was
I
it not?
think I was. What's
It
that?
was vandalism.
Yeah, vandalism, right?
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
got a call in the morning from one of the park supervisors and said, "Hey, Kevin, do you think you could come down to Point Pleasant, Public Gardens, not Point Pleasant Park, Public Gardens?
yeah. Okay, yeah,
You think you could come down here and some branches have been broken and some things." And when I got down there, the first place I went to was this big old weeping beech tree, which is a staple in the park, and it's over 150 years old. A lot of people get their wedding pictures taken under it. Like it's a lot. It's of incredible historic value as well as intrinsic and just most of us in our lifetimes and in the next couple of generations will never see trees like that again, right? So somebody had literally torn the bark off all the way around for, I don't know, 10-inch height. And there was just this one little groove on the back side where they hadn't been able to get their knife into. So there were still nutrients passing up and down in there. And it was just a very narrow, probably a 5 millimeter strip. So staff were actually stapling, like a jigsaw puzzle, they were stapling these bits of bark back onto this tree, and then and then we wrapped them with plastic. We made them moist. We wrapped them with plastic, and then with coconut coir and various other things to keep moisture and all types of things. To keep the
Yeah.
moisture in them to try to prevent disease and further destruction. It was in the middle of the summer, right at the end of the season, where trees are growing and are now trying to put some nutrients away for the winter.
Yeah.
And whoever did that knew what they were doing. They were definitely out to kill a bunch of trees. So there were about 27 trees impacted altogether. I think we've lost 5 of those. 3 of them were saplings that were badly bashed up and we couldn't save. A couple of them were slightly bigger trees. The massive ones have done really well. We did do the like Stan Kochenoff came in and gave us a hand, and we did some grafting and various other things. And the trees are starting to come back, and they're doing all right. But I think it'll take a few more years before we see the major impact. But really, what it comes back to is people attacking something that is living but doesn't have the ability to run away
Or defend itself. Yeah.
or defend itself. Exactly, right? So, I see part of my attachment to trees is being their defense in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, we remove trees. Sometimes you remove a tree privately because if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it. But for the most part, we're out to educate folks and preserve as much as possible, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In the private industry, I talked hundreds of people out of removing big, healthy specimens. Or even, trees that have been battered up, but they had a chance. This is what we can do for this tree. This is what we can do for you. This is what the benefit is to you.
Yeah.
It's what the benefit is to the tree. This is the value
Yeah.
to you, the tree, and to your neighbors.
Yeah.
So that it's not just, this is the value to nature, to the birds, to the insects. This is what trees bring into the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
These are the major benefits. Just because that tree got battered, we all get battered. We all eventually age out. Did somebody stick a gun to our head when we start getting, a little gnarly? I don't think so, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and what a contribution, and even the trend that you're seeing for, leaving leaving old logs or stumps or for in a park just as a conversation piece, like especially big stuff, that you don't have to clean it all up and grind the stump. It'll for years, for decades, it'll continue to give people pause to say, man, look at this thing. Look at you can look at a trunk laying on its side and just see it in a different way, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
the benefits are quite amazing, and the other I think that's interesting is how long, the age, like knowing that it was there before you were born for a long time, potentially a lifetime, and is going to be there long after your lifetime is ended. Like there's not a lot of things that we experience as humans where we can see that. I mean, mountains and things like that, but they're not living in the same way that a tree is. It's I don't know. Maybe some people argue that mountains are alive because they do change and shift, but I feel it's a little more personal connecting with a tree than a mountain. Maybe not. Maybe that's because I'm a tree guy.
Years ago when I was out in Calgary, me, Andrew, and Travis went out to somewhere between Lethbridge and Calgary, went out into the mountains.
Yeah.
And what I distinctly remember about that is that we had this crazy camp in a thicket fairly close to a river. It was a beautiful spot, and on the back of the thicket there was a big open plain, and then the mountains shot up
Yeah.
on the backside of this plain. So we had a couple of chairs and we'd sit out there and just like admire the mountains. And then one day I got up and I walked down along the tree line, probably, a kilometer and a half along the tree line, and then I crossed the river and I climbed the scree or the shale or whatever it is
Yeah.
way up this mountain. And I found this big rock and I was standing on the rock and I took my shirt off. It was a red shirt and I was waving it around like this. and yelling across the, and I could see the guys back there sitting in these little white chairs. They looked like little ants, right? And then they were like, "Whoa!" And I could hear them shouting, and everything was kind of echoing in from the distance, you know. And I will never ever forget that. It's like a still in my mind of everything behind those guys and how small we are,
Right.
right? And I didn't have a camera with me, and there's no way I would have been able to take a picture to actually present to somebody to say, you know, do you see what I see here, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just a drop in the ocean, right? But we're making a difference.
Yeah.
We're trying to make a
Yep.
difference.
Yeah. Well, I think you just painted the picture perfectly. I can, I, better than a photograph could, right? And that's what stories are good for.
Yeah, there's lots more, boy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll have to have the Patreon outtake version, the uncut, the outtake.
Yeah, yeah. There's lots of more stories where those came from, but
Well, we always
a
reserve the
lot of a
right.
lot of them are can't be recorded, right?
Well, they can be. They're going to be carefully shared. We always reserve the right to have guests on again. Now, we've started a tradition this season. You may have, if you've been listening to some of the recent podcasts, we're ending every podcast with a pithy point. Are you familiar with pithy points?
I've seen you do them.
Yeah. So there's 950 of them. You can pick a number between 1 and 950, and it'll take us to our close. What number would you pick for your pithy point?
56, my age. How about that?
Okay. 56.
That's always a difficult question, man. Pick a number between.
Not 1 and 950. I know, it's like, what a range. Tony's always like, no one ever picks in the like 805. Okay.
Well, you know what? I was just thinking, should I just go 950? But you know what? Let's
56.
pick a
Tree pithy
56.
point number 56. When the tree fell on a computer, the bark silenced a lot of bites. But I should read it.
Hey, how old?
I
Now
should.
wait a second. How old is that pithy point?
I think he published it in '99.
So I mean, computers and AI and everything have come a heck of a long way, right?
Yeah.
When I was in university, we had to take Computers 101, which was literally some sort of DOS program where you had to write a silly little program to add 1 plus 1 equals 2. And I could not get my head around that. And you know what? For good reason, because down the road, here we are. The bloody things do everything we want for them, for us, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have to think when we type in. We don't have to write programs. We don't.
No.
The internet manages that stuff for us. It's amazing how far it's come. It's good and bad. I could quite honestly be happy if it all disappeared right now. It would hurt for a little while, but take away that cell phone and
Yeah.
that curse. You know what I mean? That sort of thing that you're locked to.
You got two
But
of them, I
by the
think.
same token, it makes life a lot easier in the process, right?
I should read it with the right enunciation because there's an exclamation mark at the end. So when the tree fell on a computer, the bark silenced a lot of bites. Like, is it a joke, Tony? Do you get it? You're the philosopher.
Well, yeah, microbites, and the bark is worse than the bite. So it's a play on words with the word bite. BITE as opposed to bite by a dog, as opposed to bite of
Oh, yes, the bark
bites.
silenced a lot of bites.
Yeah, so the tree crushed the computer, smashed all the bites.
Yeah. Okay. The bark silenced a lot of bites. Okay. Thank you for that.
You know what? I love that.
I know that.
I tell you what, I'll leave you guys with a story that kind of ties into that. I have a camp an hour and a half from here on a lake, nice peaceful spot. Do a lot of fishing there and hanging out, and I had I had a 35-foot or 37-foot travel trailer in there, and I pulled it out because it got water damage, and I pulled in a 24-footer second-hand thing, and I had it there for a few years. And when I pulled the first one in, my neighbor or my buddy who co-owns the land with me, he also has a travel trailer in there. His parents were like, "Yeah, man, you've got a lot of huge trees around your travel trailer. You're crazy to have those." And there was big hemlocks and red spruce, and I think there were 3 hemlocks, 2 red spruce, and a bunch of huge yellow birch and that kind of thing, really close to the trailer. He said, "You're nuts," and I was like, "Oh man, I'm not concerned about that, right?" So then I pulled that big trailer out, put the smaller one in, and I was down there with a buddy of mine. This was probably 7 or 8 years ago. We were down there around Christmas time. And it was one of the, when you, in a trailer, you have the sort of seats with the table or whatever, and you flip the table down and somebody sleeps there.
Yeah.
Well, he slept there and I slept in the front of it in the small bed that was up front. And it was a pretty windy night and raining and all types of crap. So I was like, yeah, you know what? That was dodgy being in there. I was looking out a few times and the trees were whipping around quite a bit. And I thought, maybe this coming summer, back then I'll think about taking 1 or 2 out of here. Anyway, a week later, a buddy. So then over New Year's, we had a really strong wind, and it came in from a weird direction trees weren't used to. And I had this massive red spruce at the bottom of the hill, way down below the travel trailer. Twisted, came up the hill, went right through the travel trailer. This is less than a week later than we were in there. And it literally sheared in half as it landed. So through the twist, it sheared in a very clean shear. But it went right through the travel trailer, right where my buddy Sammy would have been sleeping on the table bed. And the whole thing was and the whole frame was bent like this. So the whole trailer was lifted, and it was just an absolute bloody mess. So a buddy of mine was down there at his trailer checking things out to see, or down at his camp checking things out to see if there was anything damaged, and he walked over to my place. And he came down the hill, and all he could see was the top of this massive red spruce. He couldn't see the travel trailer at all, and that's the first picture he took. And he sent it to me. He hadn't even looked at the rest of it. He sent it to me. He goes, I don't think you're going to like this. And sends me this picture, and I'm looking, going, what is that? I didn't recognize any of it, right? So then he traipses around and he starts taking pictures from the other side. I'm like, holy crap! I was just in that thing, So anyway, so I posted some pictures, and Hordak contacted me, and he goes, "That's nature getting back at you for all the trees you took down that didn't have something wrong with them."
Right.
So that was that was where so obviously that tree took itself down. A lot of other trees have taken themselves down there, some big hemlocks. That was the only one that actually ever impacted our stuff. But in the years since then, some trees have had to be removed, unfortunately. But we've also put in a shipping container, and we have like a camp that's there to stay now. So
Yeah.
the shipping container is more robust, so I still have some pretty tall.
Yeah, you got some confidence.
Tall birches around.
It's
Right?
it's a bomb shelter, at least a tree shelter, a falling tree shelter.
Yes, and that's part of the reason we put that in there. We thought about building a cottage, but we like big trees.
Right.
So
Yeah, it makes sense.
let's put something, not brittle in there. Right?
Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your day to visit with us and share some great stories. It was a great interview. Thanks, Kevin.
Well, I appreciate meeting you, Tony, and Dwayne for inviting me. It was short notice. Hey, you want to do it this Thursday? I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got nothing better to do, right?
Well, that's our new thing is to sneak up on people. So we just sneak up on them.
Yeah.
Don't give them too much time to think about it.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's the old story about how do you catch a unique person? Unique up on them.
I like that. Well, guys, I appreciate the time.
You're welcome.
This has been a